Okay, my not even first world problem is that this phone really annoys me, so I can't swap the camera view. So hence, that's the best that I can do for now. And this nasty ass thing that you can take into the science room and really help you can be remembered in a funny and relatively easy way. Imagine that there's a really long house. Okay, we've got this really long house, and on one side there's a swimming pool. Just imagine a swimming pool on the one side of the house, and that there are two trampolines on the other side of the house. That's all you need. Now, the front door of the house has got a bottle of cane with a halo on the top of it. The middle of the house has got a key made out of alcohol, however you picture that. And at the end is just a bottle of beer with some kind of easy alcohol. Nice and easy? Cool. Now, at the front door, I want you to imagine on the one side of it, you've got all of these heaters. But then I want you to imagine on the other side of it, you've got a generation of people with halos on, and they're holding UV heaters, quite specifically. Now, that's on the one side of the house, but once we walk through the house all the way to the other side and get to that beer bottle, there are Esthers, like literally a woman called Esther on either side. But the one particularly, I want you to imagine that this Esther is stirring something. So Esther is stirring something in a car that's shaped like a box. Can you imagine that? She's stirring in a car shaped with a box, and what happens to it? Oh my word, it starts to turn into alcohol. All of it starts turning into alcohol, and that alcohol starts bubbling and boiling, and it actually starts to hit a sofa. You see H2SO4, hit SO4. So the hot alcohol hits the sofa. Can you imagine that? Okay. Now, that gives us quite a bit, but now let's go to the pool. I want you to imagine that in the pool, firstly, you see this very thirsty generation of people with halos on. They've got no water, they're very thirsty, this generation with halos on. I'm sure you can imagine that. But then I want you to imagine that you've got all of these other halo generation people underneath that who are very wet. And I want you to imagine that they are squishing Mr. Hyde and Hale together and shoving them into an alcohol key. Mr. Hyde and the Hale are being shoved into the alcohol key. That's what's happening at the shallow end of the pool. But on the deep end of the pool, I want you to imagine that Mr. Hyde has got lice. He's got all this lice, this Hyde lice, but he's on top of a lilo. Can you imagine? He's floating on the lilo. Boom. That gets you what's going on here. Now, let's move to the trampoline side. The first trampoline, by the way, has just got a cane bottle on it. That's all. Like literally a picture of a cane bottle. But the other side has got a cane bottle and an alcohol key on it. You can see that this one has got both of those. But now what happens here? I want you to imagine, first off, so we're now walking at the side of the house, and before we get to these trampolines, I want you to imagine that you've got this zombie halo generation. So it's a dead halo generation. Can you imagine? They're sitting on concrete. But I want you to imagine that they grab Mr. Hyde and they shove him into an alcohol key. And as soon as they've done that, he turns into Brad Pitt with these really big nipples. So he's a nippled Pitt. Can you imagine? He's become this nippled Pitt. Now jump over that trampoline, and I now want you to imagine that there's a dead water baby. Oh no, this dead Hydra. Can you imagine? All these dead water babies, look at their face. Oh my word, they're also Brad Pitt. All of these dead water babies are actually Brad Pitt, and then he starts getting like really, really pressured and hot. You can see he's actually boiling up, and he's cracking under all of this heat and this pressure. And then what happens? Water starts to suck out of him. He starts to dehydrate. But the water is being sucked into a hot sofa. Can you imagine? I got that quite wrong. So it gets sucked into a hot sofa that you start hitting, because you've got to remember it's hit sofa, this hot sofa, which you start to hit. Okay, that's a little bit weird. But now if you go through that very quickly, mentally picture it. You've got to picture it, otherwise there's no flipping way that it's going to work. But if you picture it, it will give you that whole thing. Hello, Queen Gandile, and hello, Ubuntu. Hello, my boy. Okay, I really hope that helps you. Au revoir.